Medical treatment, medical records. As we all know, there's lots of confidential information in those medical records, and there are a number of laws in the United States, both on the federal and state level, which protect your confidentiality in those medical records. But what happens if an employer wants some information? What if an employer says, hey, I need to have a note from your doctor? Is that permissible? Well, that takes us to this week's case. It involves a case that arose in Colombus, Ohio. Police department there, as its policy, required that officers who are going to be absent because of illness have a slip from their doctor, a note from their doctor saying why they have to be absent, that they are sick, that they're medically disabled. Well, the officer said, hey, you know what, I think this is really impinging upon our privacy. So they brought an action. And they said, this is illegal. And what they did is they looked to a little-known law that's incorporated in the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, the Americans with Disabilities Act is designed to provide that if someone has a disability, an employer must accommodate that disability. And as part of that, there is within the Act, within the law, a requirement that while an employer can request medical information, that medical information is very confined as to what it will contain, and additionally is medical information which shall be completely confidential. The officers argued that this information, the note from the doctor, was being used generally for information that was not all that terribly confidential, and therefore it violated the federal law. Okay, case goes forward, and the argument's pretty simple. The officer saying violates, the police department saying no, it doesn't violate. It's just pretty innocuous. It's not a big deal request that we're making. We just want a note that says, hey, you're sick, you got some problem, whatever, you can't come into work. Well, the court looked at it and they said, you know what? The law does provide for confidentiality in medical records. However, the confidentiality that it provides for is really pretty delineated. And it says that, you know, you can't get prescriptions, you can't get diagnosis, you can't get prognosis, you can't get any of that stuff. And in this instance, the police department wasn't asking for any of that information. All they were asking for was a note from a doctor that says this guy or gal has to be out as a result of an illness, a flu, a cold, or whatever else, a sprained ankle, or whatever the case might be. And that is not in any way violating, according to the court, the confidentiality in medical records, and therefore the police department could make that request. Okay, what's the point of this? The point of this is pretty simple, and that is if you're employed and your employer is requesting medical excuse, medical note from your doctor, well, based on this case, your employer has every right to request that. If you're an employer and you're requesting from your employees a note, you can get that note, but the note can't ask for, hey, what's the disease, what's the problem, what kind of prescriptions are being used, what's the prognosis. Don't get any of that information, but you can say, hey, why does this person need to be off work, and how long do you anticipate the absence from work to be required as a result of the medical condition? All right, we bring you this case as we bring you cases every week so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.